it was a little bit fuzzy on the one that I saw, so I couldn't quite see the details enough. Like, it was in 4K or something to be able to tell, but it looked like some punches were thrown.
Oh, wow.
While they were on the ground, and then everyone rushed over. Drame stayed on the ground.
Yeah.
Yelde was right in there immediately, right in there.
I heard how it was straight in.
Yeah, he wasn't putting up with shit. He's a big lad too. I don't know if I'd want to stand up against him.
We are live. I'm just going to go ahead and say that.
Cool.
We started live when we started talking about the touch-up, so we're fine. Welcome everybody to the American Leeds podcast. With me today, as usual, are Michael, aka Leeds Faithful on Twitter, and Canadian, proud Canadian, and proud LUFC fan. And I actually want to talk about your analysis or your comparison to the O'Leary era that you had on Twitter after the game. I think that was interesting. And then obviously the man, the myth, the legend, Jir from Leeds United The View gives us everything that we need every day as far as the rumor mill and other Leeds United news, everything from kit news to you kind of go in depth, like this little nicks and nuggets and factoids about what's happening at Leeds. I think you said you had something about some broadcasting rights. There was some just interesting stuff that you always kind of find on there, and you do your homework. As you say, you do your homework, which is really cool. So the man knows what he's talking about. Hey, Cliff's responding to us and saying hi. We're going to try to involve folks in the chat. We've got a loose agenda of what we want to talk about, but it's very fluid. This is just a context of the conversation. Obviously, Barnsley, we're looking at some of the stats from the game. Pre-recording, we were talking about how it could have been tighter than it was, but it wound up in a very comfortable 3-1 victory to Leeds. And we were all talking about how we were kind of like just watching this. I was watching a live stream and kind of getting some information from that, but there was no major broadcaster in the U.S. that was really carrying the game. So I'm just kind of looking at the stats and digesting everything. But gentlemen, what did you think of what you could decipher from the Barnsley game, the cup game?
Go ahead.
No, you go first. You're top. You're
all right. I'm top. All right, cool. Thoroughly professional performance. I mean, I know there was a sort of, obviously we did give away one goal, and Melier had to be called on to save a penalty. So it could have looked somewhat different if that had happened. But I look at the stats. I mean, we thoroughly dominated, especially the second half. It was, of course, a local derby, so there was some handbags going on, which was fun. But yeah, overall, I think you got to be really happy, and that goal from Sinisterra was a worldie, fantastic goal, and so great to see Click back on the score sheet, not once but twice. So Clicky with a brace, and one of the goals was like that old school curling shot from the edge of the area. Yeah, the one that we're so used to seeing so many times from Clicky a few seasons ago. So turning back the clock on that one, I loved it.
Jir, what were your thoughts on what you could get from the game?
I just think we should rename it the Click Special. It's just like every time he scores a goal, it's that goal, isn't it? Yep. It's he sees a gap where no one else sees the gap. Yep. I really struggled to watch the game. I was listening to it on LUTV, and Leeds really need to rename that Leeds Radio because there's nothing on it resembles TV. So, I didn't get a chance to watch it. I saw 20 minutes of a link Michael shared with me, then it went down, so that was the end of that. But I did watch the clips that were coming through, and I saw it. I didn't see the handbags, but what I did figure out was that was Liam Kitching that was involved in the handbags with Cody Drama, and I'm pretty sure they played together in the youth setup. They would have been in the same team. I'm pretty sure. Clacador was there as well, so I'm pretty sure they were on the same. I wonder was there bad blood when they were playing together? Is that where it's they're on the opposite side, they were niggle at each other? I'm just glad to get through. I'm glad we won, and I'm glad that we could actually bring on to the pitch people like Rodrigo and James and Stroke and Koch, that we've actually got some squad depth there that can actually come on. We probably, look, it wouldn't be Leeds if we didn't make things a little bit more uncomfortable than we needed to. It could have been 2-all. It could have very easily been 2-all at one point after a very easy start to the game. But look, as Michael said, thoroughly professional job. They got it done. They managed out the second half, 71% possession.
Yeah.
Like, you can't really argue that. And 711 passes is incredible. They always say a good team should put together between 350 and 450 passes per game as a successful team. I think it's 711 Leeds had tonight. Like that tells you how in control of the game they were. Yeah, 711 passes. That's crazy. It's crazy stuff. And with 84% pass accuracy as well. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, pretty good, especially too for a team that doesn't particularly love possession all that much, right? Just sort of the way we are under Marsh is that the pass accuracy stuff isn't quite as important as it was under Bielsa. Maintaining possession isn't quite as important, but thoroughly dominated. Now, I mean that some of that has to do with the level of the opposition in this case, absolutely. But they were up for it too, right? I mean, it's a local derby. There was obviously some fire in that match, so. Have to be quite impressed with the way it went today, and really four matches into the season, three in the league, one in the cup, still undefeated.
Winning is a habit. It's a
good habit to
have. And Sinister was involved in all 3 goals.
Right.
Interesting. So what were your thoughts? We were talking a little bit beforehand. What were your thoughts on the Sinister goal? I mean, my thought was they gave him a lot of room. Obviously, it's the League One side, but it's still far out, and he beat the keeper, and it was on target. So that was a special goal, in my opinion.
It was for a couple of reasons, right? The ball sort of just broke to him, and he looked like he was going to go left and wide. And I'm not sure if he changed his mind or if that was a feint of some sort, but either way, it certainly looked like he was going to go one way, and then just ended up going the other and just leathering it into the net. So I mean, yeah, it was pretty impressive, both the way he set it up and the way he finished it.
Yeah. What were your thoughts on it, Jer?
We used to have a little Brazilian last year who did things like that, didn't we? It was nice to see it again. It's a cracking strike. I mean, he appears to be turning around to go backwards towards his own goal and then kind of shimmy sideways, and he's out of trouble in half a second, and then great vision to see the gap and to actually find the corner. It's a beautiful finish. Great finish. And it's great to get a goal at Ellen Road early in your career, Leeds, because I think we said before about monkeys on backs, and it can hang with you for a bit. But he definitely starting to. It's a League One opposition, but still he was involved in 3 goals, and you want your best players at that playing against opposition at that level to really step up. And I think he had a fantastic game tonight. Not on his own though, because Somerville had a great game as well.
Yeah, not the the OG kind of get bodies in. That was just a beautiful goal from distance. That boy, if we can add stuff like that into the mix, I don't know where to start dreaming after Sunday. It was so spectacular. None of us predicted that. I want to get into Chelsea a little bit. What were your takeaways? Just general takeaways from the Chelsea game.
Jerry, want to go first?
Oh, okay. Shock. Let's get that one off the shelf. Shocked. I think I predicted a 2-1 defeat. Hope that we'd be competitive, and boy Jesus, were we competitive. There's kind of 2 sections of the game for me. There's the first 10 minutes, and then there's the rest of the match. And the first 10 minutes, I thought we were getting cut open really easily with them cutting inside. Sterling specifically. And when he didn't score, Melia made a great save, and then it was when he put wide. When they kind of came and went, I thought we looked unbelievably dangerous. We wouldn't let Chelsea. There was no respect shown for Chelsea at all. They weren't allowed play. I saw Tuchel's comments saying it was nothing to do with Leeds. And I think my tweet that I put out after the game was you were outpassed, out-tackled, outshot, outran, outworked, and outscored. Mm-hmm. How is that not Leeds? How is that not Leeds game I imposed on you? You didn't get a second to breathe. The facts don't back up what Tuchel's saying. And the fact that his excuse was the coaching staff came down on the bus, but your players didn't. And I'm pretty sure it was a 5-star bus. So I'm pretty sure you were okay when you got there. He came across as a really bad loser. But I thought if you take it, Rodrigo scoring a goal that I think Alex predicted last week, where he said those runs across the defenders was exactly what he did for the header, which is a brilliant shout. He was excellent again. And I thought right across. I thought Stroke was fantastic at left back. I thought Tyler Adams had probably his breakout game. I thought he looked every bit the defensive midfielder we were hoping to get. And I think we said, Alex, a couple of weeks ago when we had our first chat, there will be a lot of people with a lot of egg on their face with the comments about the American player signing for Leeds. Both of them looked incredible. And maybe there's a third one on the way.
Yeah,
we can dream about that. I got an interesting question about that. I posted a video about that exact topic. I got some interesting feedback, mostly from Leeds fans. There was one American that chimed in, but Michael, what were your big takeaways?
Yeah, I like you mentioned earlier, previewed a little bit. I said after the match that it reminded me a lot of the O'Leary era, and it was interesting actually because listening to the Square Ball a day later, they said the same thing, that it reminded them of the O'Leary era and the fact that we had this team of players who were not necessarily the best players on the pitch individually and comparatively, of course not. But we said, screw you, we're going to beat you anyway. And that was exactly the attitude that they seemed to have throughout. I like what you said, Jared, about showing no respect to them. There was none shown whatsoever. We were in their face. We didn't let them play. Tuchel wants to complain about the fact that his team didn't execute the plan. That happened because we didn't let them execute their plan. And he doesn't want to admit that. That's his problem, but that's exactly what happened. I thought it was a fantastic performance. I couldn't be happier to beat Chelsea, who for me equals beating Scum. I know some Leeds fans differ on that. I know everyone views Chelsea as a rival, but for
Really
me,
close.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, for
Really
me,
close.
it's right about the same for me. So quite happy with that result, and quite happy with the salty Chelsea tears afterwards.
Can we? Have you seen the clip of the Geordie guy going around Twitter?
Wait, are you talking about the
big guy?
Yeah, the guy that has
What
the thousands of followers on YouTube,
Yeah.
etc.
What is that?
About him talking about
Chelsea of all things. You're a Geordie man. First things first, sort your life out. You shouldn't be talking about anybody else bar Newcastle. What are you doing talking about Chelsea? And saying that the Tommy Tuchel shouldn't be going up there and getting his ass spanked by a Yank.
Yeah.
And I think there was one guy on Twitter put a perfect reply. Hey, he's our Yank. Back off.
Yeah.
That was it. It was everyone's shocked by this. Everyone these predetermined thoughts about what Jesse Marsch was as a coach. I heard Phil Hay and the Square Ball describe it as the beginning of the era. He's stepped out of Bielsa's shadow finally. And I don't want to get carried away after 3 games, but there was something a little bit special about Saturday that I don't think any of us thought we would ever see in a long, long time. I remember seeing Leeds play like that against Liverpool when Viduka scored his hat-trick.
Right.
About 4 goals he got, way
yeah.
back when. Yeah, that's the last time I think I saw a Leeds team play like that.
Well, Phil Hay said it was Jesse Marsch planting his flag in Ellen Road. Yeah. And I agree with that. You know, before we started the stream and last week, we said, you know what, Chelsea have wingers. Their 2 fullbacks overlap. They get down wings. This is our weakness. It just seems so obvious what was going to happen. I think Tuchel didn't set his team up correctly. He had Reece James as a center back.
Tucked in, yeah.
Right, he had him tucked in, and then he started to try to do something, I think, after halftime where he did bring him out wide. But, you know, to your point, gentlemen, like, we intimidated them. There was times where literally our front line, they were so concerned and worried about traps and these hunting in packs. I think Marsch has called it throwing the net over the player with the ball. But they were like flinching at them. Like, is the press coming? No, it's not. Like, but then it would all be on and it would be just swarm. Tyler Adams, I didn't know he was this good. As an American, I didn't know he was going to be this good. I thought he was going to be a bruiser. I thought he was going to get the ball off people. I thought he was going to work hard. And I don't know if this is correct, but it seemed like he was big in going side to side.
Yep.
In other words, helping out those fullbacks.
He was.
And he just said he had such a motor, played the full 90. I thought he was, we'll get to this too. He was my man of the match. There were several candidates.
Loads.
And my jaw was on the floor just at Tyler Adams and his effort.
There's a thing with Adams where this system that Jesse likes to play with the two sitting midfielders of Adams and Rocket, and they talked about it during preseason of a double pivot and really to get the width from the fullbacks. And what's supposed to happen is when the two fullbacks push on, the two players in the double pivot drop out and cover the fullbacks.
Yeah.
And I hadn't seen it actually work until Saturday, and it worked perfectly. And he just did all the simple things really, really well. It's not a go and smash people up, take on three players, pass the ball. It's go and break it up, take the ball, pass it 2 yards. My job is done. You're up to Rocket to take it forward now. Thought they were excellent.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a really interesting moment. I remember seeing Adams cover the wing, and no matter which way Sterling turned, he was on him. He did not give him a moment's peace. And then Sterling switched off, and he just went with the ball and wouldn't let the other player, I couldn't remember who it was, but wouldn't let the other player near it either. And eventually forced a turnover. Like he was incredible. And, I knew that he was going to be, sort of that hard tackling, holding midfielder that we needed, to replace that sort of Calvin Phillips, or that aspect of the Calvin Phillips role. But just the dexterity that he had, the agility that he showed was really, really impressive. Able to stay with quick, small wingers and other players who really should be able to twist and turn him inside out. And they just weren't able to. It was almost like he was telepathically anticipating which way they were going, and he was already on the turn at the same time they were. His reading of their play with the ball was fantastic, and I can't wait to see more of it. I'm very excited about having him in the team, especially now he really seems to be getting into it.
These team of nobodies are starting to look like somebody, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. One other trick or method we used was the offside trap.
Yeah.
And how does that work as a person that's been really seriously following football for about 3, 4, 5 years? What is that? Is that the center back standing still? Is that a risk reward thing? But there was a lot of times where they were caught offsides. And so how does that work? And what did you think of the offside trap? Both of you guys.
It's a trigger, isn't it? The offside. I haven't seen the offside trap used professionally at a high level since the late 90s. That's Arsenal were notorious for lining up on the 18-yard line, and just before a ball was hit, the entire defense would run out 10 yards and leave players 6-7 yards offside. It seemed to die out as a trait. It was more of a kind of just containing people now. So to see an offside trap in a Premier League game in 2022 was like, it took a minute or two. There was a couple in the second half, especially like back-to-back. Sterling was just always offside.
Yeah,
I think I was sitting back. My brother kind of said to me, he's a Villa fan. He was watching the game and he said, "Is that an offside trap?" And I went, "It really looks like it, doesn't it?" And he goes, "I haven't seen one in years." Like, what? So it's usually a call or a trigger. I used to have a football manager years ago when I played schoolboy kids level football who was obsessed with the offside trap. A guy called Dave Grogan, who's just one of the best managers I ever played for. And every time it was a free kick, he would line us up on the 18-yard line, and the call was mark tight. If he said mark tight, we were playing the offside trap. If he didn't, we weren't. So as soon as mark tight was in, you would grab the player beside you and you stand as close as you can. And as soon as the player started his run out, you would run 10 yards. And it had to be 10 yards because there was a gap between if you're running before he struck the ball. And players just stand offside, scratching their head, kind of going, yeah, okay, I'm offside. I can't really argue with this. And there must be a call or there must be a trigger in there that's lining them up, because it was done so often and so routinely. It was refreshing and confusing at the same time.
It's a high risk thing too, right? Like high risk, high reward, right? Because if anybody doesn't catch it, if anybody doesn't see the trigger or hear it, and they play somebody on, then the whole thing falls apart, and you've left 2 or 3 players potentially right in front of your goal open with the ball at their feet. So it is a high risk thing, but it worked beautifully. Everyone was really well organized to do it, and it was funny just to see Sterling sitting there, basically what you were saying, Jer, scratching his head like, how did I get offside all of a sudden? Well, it's because everybody stepped forward and left you there. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I've never seen it used. It was fantastic to see. And what were your other thoughts on some of? I mean, should we continue to talk about Rodrigo? Is he? Wow, 4 games now. I remember last episode I talked about 17 goals. Now he's got 4 goals in 3 games. Geez, do we even need a striker?
That's the question, isn't it?
It feels like for squad reasons, it would be wise to do so just because we know that he's had fitness issues. Bamford clearly continues to have fitness issues. As good as he is, for squad reasons, you would want one. But at the same time, it's like, I mean, I guess it's a good headache to have in some ways because you have players who are just really performing very, very well, and you can't justify benching them right now. But at the same time, if you went with the younger profile, are you blocking off, Joffy and maybe eventually someone like, Matteo Joseph or whatever. So yeah, it's a hard one. I would still want to see someone come in personally, just for safety reasons, because I'd really hate to be stuck just with Dan James up front all season, if something were to happen. But who do you bring in? That's the question. And for me, it's got to be someone that can play 9, but can also play in other roles too. So that way you do have the option of a bit of rotation, and you're not just cutting someone off and always having someone on the bench. Right? You'll have an opportunity to rotate a little bit. And I think with the intensity that we're playing at, that probably something we're going to need to do anyway.
Yeah. That armband seems to have given him energy.
Fits him well, doesn't it?
Armband, isn't it a cape, like a super cape?
I'm shocked. And Jesse, it's not just Rodrigo. He seems to be getting the best out of most everybody.
Yeah.
So Rodrigo's becoming the player that we thought we bought. And that's just amazing. That needed to happen. To be the highest transfer in club history, you gotta be, as you said with Aronson, Cheer, you kind of gotta be good.
Yeah.
So yeah, do you have any additional thoughts on Rodrigo?
Yeah, there's lots of things about Rodrigo I'm happy about. I've liked him since we signed him, and I have felt sad for him since we signed him at the same time, because he's similar to Dan James. He's been judged repeatedly from playing in a position that isn't his natural role. He's never really got a run bar one back end of a season to play as a 9. And I thought he's doing all the things that he's supposed to do. His hold of play can still get better. There's still work there. And I can see that that's probably why they don't play him always as a 9 if there's another option. But the work he gets through, the pressing that he does, his goals have been excellent. They've all been different. And they've all been like they're these. And Alex, you said this last week. It's the clever runs that he makes around the outside of the defenders and gets on the end of them. And the header was just a really clever run where everyone's expecting to go that way, and he goes that way instead and comes around the far side. And it's a beautiful header as well. He's such a likable fella, and he comes across as such a professional. You want to see him do well at Leeds, and you're kind of always been kind of, it has to be this year, has to be this year, has to be this year, and it just hasn't happened. And I hope that this is the start of something rather than just a little burst of form, and that, he needs to keep this going. Momentum is going to be important. But he looks like he's really enjoying himself. And I don't know if I'm getting soft in my old age, but there was a couple of heartwarming moments on Sunday. And one was to hear the fans singing his name. I thought was just beautiful, considering all the stuff he's gone through over the last 2 years. And then to hear Jesse Marsh's name being signed by the fans as well is just the two things that are great things to hear. But I think he deserves this run, and I think he's given Leeds a real headache. Now, if you're going to bring in a striker, it's got to be someone on his level. And I now think Patrick Bamford is playing second fiddle to Rodrigo going forward for the rest of the season. Patrick Bamford wasn't on the bench tonight even. And that's another concern. Again, it's another game where he hasn't featured. And if this little niggle that was only going to keep him out for half a week is only a little niggle, why wasn't he involved tonight? This was a perfect opportunity to get him on the second half for a couple of minutes, and he's not in the squad. So it could be a case of saving him from Saturday, but I still think we need another striker. Joffy and Rodrigo are not the same player, and Joffy, Rodrigo, and Bamford are not the same player. looking at who we're linked at, there's no pattern to it. Like there's Diaz, who's just a goal scorer. His hold up play is not great. You've got Shea Adams, who can hold up the ball and scoring goals right now, but his pressing and his work rate's not great. And you have Martin Terrier, who's a runner in behind and very Thierry Henry-esque, who's nothing like the other guys as well. So you couldn't even put your finger on a player and go, there's a type here that Leeds are after.
Yeah, profile,
There's no profile here, and it's tricky to figure out which direction you go in. But it's becoming a bigger question of, do we actually need a striker? And if everyone stays fit, and if Rodrigo's a 9 now and not a 10, possibly not. I don't want to say that out loud in case he gets, twists his ankle in the morning, he's out for a year.
Well, we're linked with Hwang as well, right? From Wolves. That was another one that came up. And again, it's just different profile again, right? Like
I think Hwang is he played for Marsh and people are just trying to connect dots together. Probably. I just can't. He's not even playing well for Wolves.
No.
Why would you pay 17 million for a guy who has proven that he can't do it in the Premier League? But he has played for Marsh, and there's this whole redemption thing of whether they can play well under Marsh, they can play under. I don't know.
It comes up just the day after the stories about the conversations that Marsh had with Tyler Adams about redeeming himself and bring back the old Tyler and that sort of thing, right? Like it could just be a case of that, right? Just people connecting dots that aren't necessarily there. I think what you were saying, Jer, about Rodrigo is totally correct. His pressing actually this season has really impressed me so far. It's not something that he was particularly good at under Bielsa. I think it's because we're pressing differently. We're not just pressing everyone all the time, man for man, but we are. And, of course, if he was playing in a forward role ever, which usually he wasn't, but if he was, then you're sort of pressing two center backs as the striker. But even as usually where he was playing in midfield, going man for man, he really struggled with that. But this new press that we're doing, which is more, sort of ball oriented, and there are triggers, and you don't press always, but you press at certain points. I think it really works for him. I think he gets it more, whether it's, intellectually or physically or whatever it is. He seems to be a lot better at it than he was under the Bielsa style press, and it suits him. And he's getting in good positions after the press, obviously, because he's been able to get in amongst the goals with his run. So it's a welcome improvement for him. And honestly, I struggled to get on board with him after all the struggles that he was having. My position on Rodrigo is always, he's a fine player, and I feel badly for him that it's not working, because he seems like a really nice bloke too, but it's not working. And at some point you just have to admit, maybe it was just the wrong player for this style of football. Not anymore. The style has changed, and it actually suits him now. I think I'm quite happy for him and for us to be the beneficiaries.
All right.
Marsh mentioned the pressing system last year, and that it is different than obviously what Bielsa did, but not just the fact that obviously you're pressing somebody, you're trying to get the ball off them, but how he presses is different. And he mentioned that guys got carded for the pressing system that he tried to implement. And so now that's no longer happening. They're working within the rules of the game. And I think he almost, and it, to me, was referencing the two red cards by Dan James and Luke Ayling that happened in the top 6 sides towards the back end of last year. But I wanted to just set the stage. You're listening to the American Leeds podcast. With me today is Michael and Gier. Michael is AKA Leeds Faithful on Twitter, and Gier is the host of the daily contents that you require every day in the morning. Leeds United, The View, and please like and subscribe. So you control your algorithm. The algorithm does not control you. So happy to take any comments, suggestions, anything that you guys want to talk about. We're happy to field any questions that you guys have. I wanted to talk a little bit about the look. We talked about the striker situation, but Bamford healthy, Firpo healthy, I don't think they're walking back onto their starting roles. And that's a good thing. That's something that we did not have last year. And the squad depth is just so important. I don't want to see Jack Harrison or Dan James leave. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But do you boys both agree with me that Firpo and Bamford are not walking back into their starting roles?
Well, I think they shouldn't. I think healthy competition is healthy, right? So as long as the players are available and competing with each other, I think that will spur us on to perform better. And I think that may have been some of the issues before. Some of the things that you get with a very small squad is that people are safe in their position. So, while I don't like to see a bloated squad either, I think we have to get the right balance there. And right now, I think we certainly have that to be able to bring on players of quality. Later on in matches is one thing, but also having some competition for places is another. And for me, I'm quite happy with the players that are out there right now performing as they are. Strauch is doing very well. I've continued to say that we need another left back for squad reasons, but I am really, really impressed and getting more and more impressed as time goes by with Strauch in that position at left back. And yeah, how do you dislodge Rodrigo right now? I don't think you can.
I don't think you do. Yeah, I think it's you can't. You don't. And on the basis of he deserves that role right now.
Yeah.
He's scored in every game he's played so far this season. You don't drop a striker in form. And looking at the comments here, Babs is in there saying that he's possibly out for a few more weeks. And this is where it comes in. If he is out for a few more weeks, that is another prolonged period of time, which means when he comes back from that, there are more sets of niggly little injuries he can pick up. And Adam Forshaw went through the exact same thing last season and missed the entire year. So I think if that is the case, they need to go and get a striker. But I don't think anybody walks in ahead of Rodrigo right now. And I think Strauch has been excellent. The first game of the season, I had concerns about him getting caught at the back post. We talked about balance and natural positions last week. I still think I would still like that natural balance of a natural left back. But if Strauch is playing well at left back, like why would you? I've seen people on Twitter do a complete 180 on Strauch at left back and saying, been the best left back in the Premier League so far this season. You couldn't possibly drop him. And there's good left backs out there. I still think we will do a left back. I do think we'll, but I don't know if we'll do it now or in January. But there's definitely a need one because Strauch shouldn't be the backup for Firpo. Strauch should be the backup for the centre halves because that's where he is. He's a centre back and he's a bloody good centre half. And that's where he should be. He should be the backup for Llorente, while Cooper is the backup for Koch right now, as they are right now. You still need to have a backup for left back as well. One or two injuries across that back line kind of messes up, the covering that we've got there. Because if we lose a centre half or if Cooper comes back and gets another niggle, you got to pull Strauch inside, then you're back to not having a left back again. So, yeah, I don't think Firpo walks back in, even if he is fit. And I think I watched a lot of stuff this week, and I saw a lot of people talking about Firpo and how fullbacks play under Jesse Marsch in Austria and Germany and in the States. And Firpo looks like the kind of player who would do very, very well under Marsch in terms of a powerful player going forward, likes to attack, leggy runs, but there's still need for a backup there. So I don't think Firpo walks back in. I think Strauch holds his position. I think Rodrigo holds his position just on form alone.
Yep.
Yeah, same. And this is just, again, these are new problems that were good problems that we're having that we didn't have last year. And this is just the squad depth. The squad doesn't seem huge. It doesn't seem big, but it's so much bigger than last year, especially when people are healthy. And if we're where we want to be, if we're where we want to go, which is challenging the top six narrative and pushing for Europe, we don't stress out about squad depth. We don't really stress out. I think there's been a lot of, look, if we bring in another forward that's not a striker, well, then that's going to push Dan James and Sinisterra back. Or we're pushing, which I agree with too. At the same time, I see the balance with Jaffe needs a run of games. He does. And I'd love to see him continue to be involved in the games. But top six sides don't worry about offending players because they're not going to get game time. You know what I mean? They just know that it's kind of, maybe that's their entitlement, which isn't a great thing either. Trust me, it's very annoying being friends with a Spurs and a Liverpool fan at times. But squad depth is just so important to give Marsh options, especially later in the game, especially with 5 subs now. So I want to just shift a little bit to Dan James and Jack Harrison, the 2 wingers that have been rumored to be on their way out. A lot of people on the social media, which we have to take with a pinch of salt, as Giro always says, are like, yeah, can't wait to get rid of Dan James. Can't wait to – there's no final production, which I get and I understand. And I also understand he's been out of position. So they did – I sent you guys a video. I don't know if you were able to look at it. They did a really interesting breakdown of Aronson's goal, and they highlighted Dan James in that video and talked about his pressing kind of really starting off the movement of the ball backwards. I don't think it was his final press that allowed the ball to go back to their goalkeeper. But look, there's something to be said about Dan James and his ability and his unfortunate, like you said, Jir, with Rodrigo, he's been playing out of position. And boy, I don't want to kind of kick a player to the curb that has bags of potential. But at the same time, I do understand that some players are frustrated with his production. So I just wanted to talk about Dan James and, kind of, are you okay with him leaving? A, and B, if you're okay with him leaving, would you like to see a player come in?
There's this thing that I've seen an awful lot of over the years at Leeds, when it's, if a player is not good enough for the starting level or 11, or he's going through a run of bad form, it's sell the player. Players are allowed to sit on the bench as well, and regain form and come on and still have an impact. You don't want to just constantly be cutting back on your squad because somebody's out of form. And what you said, Alex, is where I have been with the whole Dan James thing. Dan James has not played on either wing for a prolonged period of time since he's been at Leeds. When we saw him playing for Swansea in the Championship, when he played against Leeds, there was a player there that we were all really, really excited to get. He went to Manchester United, and relative in United's terms, whatever about how United were playing at the time, he did reasonably well. He scored a couple of goals. He had a few assists. He that's what United. It's not always easy for people to go to United and establish themselves, and he did it to a degree. We managed to get him because of other players they wanted to bring in, and he managed to fall in the pecking order slightly, but he's never had that run of games. Same as Rodrigo up front. He's never had that run of games where he could play in his natural position and show us what he's got. Saying he hasn't done it yet or his end product isn't there is, I believe, a slightly unfair comment, because we haven't really seen him in that position to judge him properly. He's had a couple of games out wide, but then he's back up front, or he plays 20 minutes out in the wing and then he goes back up front again. And I just don't think it's fair on the guy. I would like to see us, can we get value for money for him? We're getting it from Rodrigo right now. Yeah, it took 2 years, but we're getting it right now. And it might be the same with Dan James. We might see it later this season, but I would not thin out the squad to benefit somebody else in the same division. If he's going to Spurs, ask yourself why. Spurs are considering themselves to be a top 6 team, and Newcastle have goals of going there as well. If these are the clubs being linked with our players, that's the bracket that we should be trying to get into, like that lower 6 mid-table bracket. Selling our players to these teams is making them stronger and us weaker as a result. And it's a really narrow-sided thing to say, yeah, just get rid of them for 20 million. For whose benefit? Because it won't be our benefit, because we're not going to get a winger for 20 million in the Premier League, not this year anyway. Not the way the prices have all been inflated. That's not going to happen. So if he has to sit on the bench, I'm okay with that. I don't feel sorry for footballers that are usually sitting on the bench. They're earning 60 to 80 to 100 grand a week for sitting on the bench. That's not a bad gig. I'm not going to cry any tears for somebody earning that kind of money sitting on the bench. But don't get rid of these players, again, as I said, to benefit somebody else and to weaken your squad. There will be a time and place that we need Dan James. And I think it's just been said in the comments there as well. We want to go on a cup run. We have the EFL Cup, we have the FA Cup. We're going to need to rotate these players around. Yeah. Dan James will absolutely have his time and place in this squad this season.
Yeah, that's my position as well. Even just particularly for squad issues, we just got out of a place where we had too few players, and we do not have too many at this point. You could be argued that we could still add a couple to be the right size, and that goes all across the pitch. So I think that to get rid of him now even if the money is good, and yes, 20 is less than we paid for him, but we've had him for a season or whatever, and it wasn't, for various reasons, some potentially not his own fault, wasn't the best season, obviously being played at a position and everything. But yeah, I would struggle right now with the idea of getting rid of a player without having more coming in. And it doesn't look like we'd be able to. Even a 1-for-1 to me doesn't work right now. We should be looking to add, not even out, right? So if one out, we would still need to bring 2 or 3 in. I just don't see that happening. I agree as well, Jared, what you're saying, just in the sense of so Dan James for me has been a thoroughly professional player. He's done whatever job has been asked of him, even though he's openly acknowledged that those are not his favorite things to do, like playing up front. That's not his skill set. That's not where he sees himself. It doesn't really fit for him, but he does it anyway because that's what he's been asked to do. And at no point did he sulk. At no point did he give any less than 100%. He put his body on the line. He did everything he was asked. And there's value, even if the player is struggling for form, even if the player, needs extra time to settle into the role that they actually should be playing. There's value in having that kind of character around. And I think he's shown a lot of that. And I have to give him a lot of respect, even if I haven't been all that happy with the way that he's played all the time. In terms of productivity, I can't fault the effort, and I can't fault the attitude and the professionalism. And I think there's value to that, and value, for keeping him around. He seems to fit that same ethos that Marsh is trying to impose on everybody. It seems to be working. So I would be happy to keep him around for another season and see how it goes, and would hope to see him playing in his more natural position. I also think that that there is some usefulness for him as a weapon in certain circumstances. When you're playing against slower center backs, when you're playing, if you wanted to bring him in to face tired legs towards the end of a match, there are ways that we can use Dan James, I think, to bring the best out of him. And I would certainly think that Marsh is aware of that and will be able to do it.
I assumed Sinisterra was being brought in to replace James at some point.
I thought so too.
That was what I assumed. And maybe Sinisterra getting a couple of knocks in preseason is just maybe giving Dan James an opportunity to give him a little bit more time. But the question I would have for both of you guys and for everyone who's watching this, and your chat's really active tonight, which is great. But here's an honest question. If 20 million is the fee, and from what I can read on Twitter, a lot of fans agree 20 million is fine for him, who do you buy with 20 million to replace him of the same level or better?
And that is the question. I do want to validate, and the answer is probably nobody at this market, at this stage of the game, at this, the transfer window being, what are we at? It is the 24th. What do we got? 6 days?
Yeah.
7 days. So I do want to validate a little bit of the, top 6 sides have European matches. They're in other competitions. I agree with that. But I think that there's a balance, because the mindset before was, Bielsa's small squad. And if you're not playing, then there's no reason that you're here, because then, I don't know, you thought maybe it developed a toxic locker room. I think there's a balance between what we had and what we need. And I don't think that we need a big, ginormous squad like Chelsea had maybe 2-3 years ago. I don't think that looked like, I agree with the comment that it looked like our bench was better. And I agree with that. But I also don't think that we need to go back to what we had last year, where it was, some starters, a couple of, I think he wanted ideally 2 or 3 U23 players on every bench. I did the analysis of the Chelsea December game, and I can look it up. Chelsea December 2021 versus what we had August 2022. We had like the only senior player, I believe, on the Chelsea, where we almost got a draw and should have gotten a result in December. The only senior player that Bielsa could have picked off the bench, senior player, was Click.
Yeah,
that was it. Jaffe he didn't have very much game time back then. I can't remember who the other 23. Somerville. We had Ailing at center back. which I love Luke Ayling, and he's had some good games, okay games at center back. And then we had Forshaw as the holding one, which is, I love Forshaw. I did a video on this too. Give me Forshaw for 40 minutes and a holding two. Give me that all day. Yeah. Forshaw as the one for 38 games. You're crazy. And that's what we had to do with the parts of last season. So obviously we don't want to go back to where we were. And we're seeing that the squad depth and the subs are making a huge difference towards the end of these games, icing these things down and snatching the points off the table. Yeah. So I just think we got to get the balance there right. And so thus I don't necessarily want to see a Dan James go. Go ahead, Jer.
I was gonna say that was one of the great things that we saw at the weekend with the Chelsea game. We talked about substitutions in Marsh's first game being done really, really well and getting it right, and then against Southampton getting it completely wrong. He got it right again this weekend. And I think bringing a player like Forshaw on the last 25, 30 minutes, again, as we said, to do the dirty donkey work running around the edge of the box to tighten up the game, he's excellent at that. Like he is excellent at that. He is that is exactly his niche. And to have another player beside him who could pick up the ball and play with it then is even better for him. So like you can't underestimate each of these players' individual roles in the entire plan or the entire squad. They all have a part to play, and they're all important in some area, So it's Marsh likes a bigger squad than Bielsa. He said it. He likes to work with a big squad. He likes, in the ideal world, 2 players in every position. If you can get to that, there's very few teams can. I think Chelsea, Man City, and Liverpool are probably the only ones. But he's not going to let a player go that he's putting work and time and effort into. And from pre-season, Dan James looked like he was part of his plan. And I would be absolutely shocked. There's my reputation on the line here. I would be shocked if Dan James leaves the club this year. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't think so either. I don't think he would be leaving without somebody coming back in. So I texted you boys about this question, and the only reason I picked these 3 because these were kind of rumor mills, and obviously this one player is very interesting. He's an intriguing player because he's an American. But Dan James, Jack Harrison, Pulisic, start, bench, or drop from the club altogether. Never to, or in the case of Pulisic, never to come near the club. Again, I picked Dan James, Jack Harrison were the 2 players to be rumored going out. Pulisic, maybe I'm biased. I don't know. I just think he would be an intriguing player coming in. Obviously, we know through his dad, through maybe his agent dropping hints in the papers that, and the United States men's national team looking for him to get game time. And he's an American. What would you pick? Dan James, Jack Harrison, or Pulisic? Start, bench, drop from the club / never to be at the club. I'll let you boys answer.
Yeah, Jared was quick. Jared was quick on the draw, pointing at me, so I guess I'm up. I'll get you next time. Yeah. Having just said that I want to keep Dan James, I think I'll probably prioritize Pulisic over him, sadly. But I don't think I could drop Harrison right now, even for Pulisic, as good as he is. Like, Harrison's unbelievable right now. Harrison is so underrated, and he just does not get the respect he deserves. Not that anybody really trashes him, but I just feel like he doesn't get quite the level of respect that he deserves. I was scratching out earlier on, like, just what his goal involvements have been since he's been with us in the Premier League. So since we started, 3 seasons ago, he's got 17 goals and 12 assists and 74 appearances. That's significant in a team that admittedly played very well one year and really not well at all the following season, right? So 17 and 12 and 74 appearances. And somebody that I know was sort of saying, well, is he better than someone like Martinelli, for example, at Arsenal? I went, okay, Martinelli, sure. 13 goals and 7 assists and 60 appearances. Actually, yes, he is better than Martinelli. So there you go. I think Harrison is not droppable right now, no matter what, even if you were to bring in someone like Pulisic.
You have to add into that as well. Harrison had a bad year last year. So of those games that he played, He got 1 assist in the entire season last year was 1 assist. So you look at how good he was before last season with a season in the Premier League and already how well he started this season. He's got 3 assists and a goal in 3 games.
Yeah.
Crazy. It's crazy. I would have always had Harrison last year as a 7 out of 10 player. He was a steady, consistent 7 out of 10. He'll play some games, he won't some others. I think this year he's at a 9 and an 8 or a 9. Like in and out, like he's been involved in so many of the goals. Even if he's not assisting, he's there. He's in and around the move. He's playing his part. And I said last week, he's not over carrying the ball as much as he used to. Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm not going to let Michael get off the hook because he hasn't told us who he's benching.
Oh no, I did. Sorry, yeah, no, I would bench Pulisic.
Oh really?
Keep Harrison in. I would keep Harrison in,
and then James out.
And James, I'm sorry, would have to leave. Completely opposite to what I said previously, but. If you're comparing him with someone like Pulisic, I think he would have to probably take precedence. So put it this way, I'm forced into an answer that I didn't want to give you, but that's the way it would have to be for me.
I will agree with what you've said. And again, being a massive hypocrite now, but I will agree. I would start Harrison just because of how well he started this season, bench Pulisic and drop James. Again, Babs in the comment has made a very, very good point. Harrison doesn't get injured.
Yeah.
Like he's rarely injured. That guy looks after himself. If you look at his Instagram, the amount of work he gets through in the off season when he's supposed to be doing, a little bit of work to keep himself relatively trim, he has gone off back to the States and he's doing stuff. And again, he has got an American background, but he's over there and he's training constantly working on getting better. And he's a player that every season he's been at Leeds, you've seen him get a little bit better. Like his first season in the Championship, he was okay. He was just about okay. Second season Championship, he was really, really, really good. Yep. First season in the Premier League, he was okay. Second season, not so good. This season, so far, incredible. So he has this ability to improve every year.
Yeah.
And I love that. I think that's not something you can really get rid of. And he started this year absolutely on fire. He's also the link with him with Newcastle. It was like Leeds will take 35 million for him. Then it was okay. Well, Newcastle are building 22, and then Leeds came back and went, no, 60. We said 30, but we meant 60. So it's now 60 million. He has got more goals, more assists, more goal involvement, more chances created than Anthony Gordon has in a similar period of time. If Anthony Gordon is worth 60 million, then Dan James is worth more than that. Sorry, not Dan James, Jack Harrison. Jack Harrison is worth more than that.
This is just, well, first of all, this started off as like a Dan James appreciation podcast, and then we're all dropping because obviously we all agree, even the chat agrees that it would be Dan James that we drop.
Yeah,
from the club.
Out of those 3, like if there's more
out of those 3, but
hang on.
And I think it speaks to Jack Harrison's growth. And I know it's the first 3 games of the season. He is always available. I've talked to both of you about this. He's always fit, and that's a big part of football. Here's where I think he even accelerates himself to the Dan James, who's been rumored at 20 million in the 20s, and now Jack Harrison, who's been rumored at 30, and we asked 60. His dead ball. If he goes, and I know that Aronson's lining up. They're doing the in-swinger, out-swinger thing, which I think is cool. The set piece thing of Leeds is been such a great element to implement and see, and it's been a vital piece of spring of the preseason friendlies and now the regular season. But his dead ball ability, I don't think Pulisic delivers as good of a ball as Jack Harrison, and so that's where that's a big thing in the league is your ability to strike a dead ball. So,
everyone on every team thinks that their team is the worst at taking corners and that their corner takers can never get it past the first man. Right? Admittedly, we were pretty terrible at them, but previously, but we seem to be a lot better at them now. I had said to some friends of mine, some Leeds friends of mine previously, when Marsh came in, that I thought that dead ball situations, free kicks and things, set pieces were going to be an area for improvement for us. One, because I think that's a much more key element to play in MLS. It seems to be something that's really much more important. And in North American sports in general, special teams, set pieces, those types of things happen a lot more, I think, in North American sports. There's a lot more emphasis on that style sort of thing. And I'm all for it. I'm happy for that to be part of what we do. It's all about those marginal gains. And if that's one way we can gain a little bit of an advantage over some other teams that may not prioritize it as much, I'm happy for it.
There was a thing that Phil Hay said this week about Bielsa, and he said that Bielsa viewed set plays as a form of cheating or an unfair advantage, and that's why he never worked on them at all. And if you look at Leeds on the set plays over the last 4 years, we looked like we could concede every corner, and we looked like we'd never score from a corner. You could see there was nothing being worked on.
He took him short a lot.
Yeah, it was just get the ball back into play. It was like, don't give possession away, just get it back. I mean, there's a logic to it. I mean, I've heard people like Guardiola and Bielsa and other managers talk about, well, what if you just didn't put the ball in the box from a corner? What if you just didn't put any players in the box from a corner? Because the chances are you lose possession anyway, just giving it back to the opposition. Why not just go and play it back into play? And I think he did it once with Calvin Phillips, where Phillips it was in a cup match. Phillips took a corner and went straight back to our goalkeeper with the ball. In the corner, people are outraged by it, like wasting opportunity. And but there are marginal gains there. And that's why it's an argument to say, well, no, we shouldn't just give the ball back to our team and play back out, and we should actually try and score from a corner. Because you do have those worked plays, and it is absolutely an American thing. Because you think about basketball and American football, they're all rehearsed plays. They're all step-by-step routines that are worked on day in and day out. And when the ball is here, we move here, and you move here, and then you move here. Basketball specifically, like just so many, nearly every play in basketball is rehearsed. Yeah. So you see that with set plays, and Jesse Marsh likes them, and you can see that he likes them. We actually genuinely look at threat from every corner we take, as long as Llorente is not striking the ball from the 18-yard line.
Yeah.
Did you see where Llorente tried to nutmeg Reece James? Like it was like a reverse. It was something that
I lost the ball.
He almost kind of got it. Yeah, he got it. It was a terrible counterattack. It was from
Didn't we talk about this last week? Didn't we say about Llorente's moments of madness in the game where he tries to do something? You're like, what are you doing? You're in the corner flag and you're trying to mega player.
He tried to. It was like a reverse nutmeg, though. It was like a 360 nutmeg through Dan James, and it was just like you laughed, and it was like, oh no, and then it was like, it was a terrible moment of transition. I could just keep going about Tyler Adams too. He was just so fantastic.
Steven's asked about a chance for, I think he doesn't say Harrison, but I'm assuming it's Harrison who we're talking about in the England squad.
He's got it, hasn't he? Like he's got it. Like
he's got to be close. He's got to be close. Southgate liked him already, right? He was knocking on the door. With this form right now, he's got to be close. And I know there are a lot of wingers and like a lot of but he's playing better than any of them right now.
He's got
form has anything to do with it. He's got to be close.
About 9 weeks before the World Cup squad is picked, isn't it? About 9 weeks from now. It's November, December. Yeah. I mean, he keeps his form going. He even gets a couple of more assists. I mean, if he gets another 3 or 4 assists by Christmas, that's 6 assists in the first half of the season. That's massive for a winger. Yeah. That's a really, really good output. So he has to be knocking the door. I still see Jack Harrison at some point moving in to be a 10. I really do think there's elements of his game that suit being a number 10. Yeah. I think Hernandez is an example of that, where Hernandez started as a winger. And came inside then. And I think there's a lot of similarities at the age they're at, relative to their age. With Jack Harrison, I think he can definitely move back inside. And I think we talked about the Pulisic thing as well. I think that's what we should be looking at with this as well. Dan James can play one position and one position only. Really, he's not a striker. We know he's not, but he's a winger. Harrison can play wide or as a 10, and we've seen him play as a wing back as well and look relatively good there, especially pre-season. And if you bring in someone like Pulisic, he can play up front or anywhere across the three behind the front man as well. So you have options there as well. So
that would be my preference. Keep Dan James and bring in Pulisic.
Absolutely.
Yes. So Gier, as the rumor mill expert, do you think that Pulisic is coming? You did a little bit of homework, I know. He signed from Dortmund. And is he coming?
He was 58 million from Dortmund as being one of the best up-and-coming players in the world at that point. And as you said yourself a couple of weeks ago, Chelsea signed him to sell shirts. That's why he was purchased. That's the criticism labeled against Chelsea when it comes to Pulisic. He's a bloody good player, and he is definitely a top talent in world football, should he get a run of games. And again, we said last week, this World Cup coming up for him is massive. This is his chance to stamp his name as I am one of the best in the world, and he is not going to do that coming off the bench for Chelsea. He will go there and be okay, but he will not be the best version of himself.
Yeah,
I got carried away this morning. I got a little. I just, as I was saying something out loud, I have ADHD. So when I say things out loud, my brain also has a conversation with itself about something else. So at the moment that I said, you never know, my brain went, but could you imagine? Could you imagine what it would look like if he came? And I had a big smile on my face going, just imagine. Just wouldn't it be great? And I was like, I got carried away now already. I've lost the run here. His wages will be the problem. I think if he is to come into Leeds, and I don't think some of the stuff that's gone on recently has been a coincidence. I don't think him putting the photograph of himself, Adams and Aronson now after a hammering was an accident. You do not put a picture of you having fun with your mates in the opposition when you've just got thumped away from home.
Yeah.
To a just, barely saved themselves from being relegated team. I didn't think that was an accident, and I didn't think it was an accident to photograph of him and Jesse Marsh hugging coming out either. You said things about his father and agent planting things in the media and dropping bits and pieces out there. I think he's going. I think from what I read this morning, and I looked at a couple of different Chelsea sites as well, from the word that I took of all the Chelsea stuff that I saw was he is surplus to requirements at Chelsea. If this is not your best chance to get a player when no one else in the world apart from Newcastle are looking at him, does he want to go to Newcastle and go for the money? And is the Saudi Arabian stuff enough for an American player to be like, I don't want my hands near there, considering Saudi Arabia's history with America as well, a more recent history with journalists? I don't know. I would like to think that this is the surprise that they've had up their sleeve and that they're waiting on things to fall. And when I read this morning that Pulisic joining Leeds or Trevor Chalobah, the two of them being linked, is all dependent on Wesley Fofana joining them from Leicester, I went, these are dominoes. They're all lining up. If one goes, the next one goes, the next one goes. And that's when I got carried away in my head. I was like, there's a chance. And the problem that they always say is it's the hope that kills you. And I hope this is the player that we bring in, because I think he fills an awful lot of roles. I'm not going to get carried away. I think he would fill a very, 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 very good role up front. Give him the shirts at the price they're selling the shirts at. They should give him pay his wages. I paid 115 quid for my shirt this morning. I couldn't believe what I was paying. Yeah. But yeah, look, he's 23. I said this morning in my video there was 3 boxes that he ticked. He can press. He can play multiple positions. I can't remember what the third one was, but then somebody else said it's actually a 4th year. He's
Premier
under 25.
Oh, he's under 25. You said Premier League experience.
Premier League experience. He can hit the ground running. Premier League experience and can play multiple positions. And then someone else said actually it's 4th year. He's under 25. So that's Marsh's 4 boxes ticked all across there.
And he's motivated. Like you said, the World Cup is coming up. He's not in any threat of being dropped. He's the biggest player for USMNT, right? Yeah. Clearly. But he does want to be the best version of himself on the world stage. Of course he does. At this stage of his career, this is the time for him to make his mark, right? To stamp himself on global football. And he is going to want game time. He's going to want to be the best version of himself. And the only way he's going to do that is by playing in a team where his skill set is valued. It doesn't feel like it is right now at Chelsea. And I think he would be motivated to move. And I think probably we're best positioned to be able to take him on. Now, I don't know whether that's a transfer or a loan. I've seen both things sort of bandied about. Either way is fine for me. Maybe it's a loan to buy. Who knows? But I would certainly love to see him in the team. I think he would tick a lot of boxes.
It's the wages, though. That's going to be the one for me. Like, he has to be on, what, 120, 150,000 a week?
It's 150, I saw, yeah.
Yeah. So that's way above what Leeds are paying anybody right now. I think one of the top contracts we have, I think, is 80,000 or just short of that. And I think, actually, when you look at the shirt sales, things that Bab said there in the chat as well, there's something in that. Like, the amount of shirts Leeds would sell signing Pulisic would be huge. Because he has an audience in Germany and he has an audience in the States. Plus, he'd be a very big player for us to be bringing in. And it would be a very big statement of intent from Leeds to say, look, we started the season really well. And now we brought in a player no one thought we'd bring in. Yeah. If they can defer some of those wages or get a split with Chelsea where, like, if it's on loan, 60%, 40% or whatever, there's a chance then and try and get the money for next year then try and make it permanent. I think he'd do very well at Leeds. I think he suits Leeds. And I don't mean that as his playing style. I mean that as in his drive to be playing. And the Leeds fans, if you look at the weekend, he would thrive under that atmosphere, I would think. And maybe that was the perfect match for the playing to have a think about it and go, well, actually, this. I've heard people say that Ellen Road was rocking on Sunday to a level that people haven't heard in a couple of years since. I think Phil Hayes said it about Becchio's goal in the playoffs. I think it's that level, and that's hair in the back of your neck sticking up. I remember Pablo scored against Bristol City in the year we got promoted. I was sitting beside the tunnel when that goal went in. The place it felt like it was breathing the whole stadium. And playing that for a player like him, and if Leeds are linked with him and he gets to play in that and he sees the reception that Jesse Marsh got and Brendan Aronson got and Tyler Adams got, why wouldn't he come and play even if it's just for 6 months to have a look, try and get into the World Cup, to give himself the best chance of the World Cup? I think it'd be a no-brainer for him, but it depends on the money. I think it's going to be the wages.
I think that he is, just for context, because I think a lot of the audience is from the UK and from Ireland, just for context, he signing for Leeds, whether it be on loan or a permanent deal, would be like, he's such the darling of U.S. soccer, kind of like the hope of soccer here, that it would be breaking ESPN news that he would be coming to Leeds, and people would be like, whoa, Leeds United, like people that haven't heard the team, don't really know anything about English football, would be like, oh wow, I'm going to follow Leeds United now. It would be, and he is the most talented player that we have. I'm confident in saying that. Aronson's fantastic. He's got a lot of good skills, but Pulisic is much more refined in his abilities. He's much more clinical. There's things that I don't want to say he's perfect, like he's Messi or anything like that. I don't want to, but he is the best player in this country. And I think it's pretty much agreed upon. And I would say him and another gentleman. There's some other players. Gio Reyna is very talented. He plays for Dortmund, and my God, the gentleman's he plays for Juventus. So I'll get his name.
Weston McKennie. Weston
McKennie is as talented as Pulisic. He's been a little bit more injured, but it's the audience, it's the marketing, it's the shirt sales, it's everything that would be very, very good. And I think he produces. I think he will produce for the
Alex, there's a comment there from Star Wars Book Club. Could you just stick that up on the screen? Because I just want to point out context here. Chelsea sold 350,000 Pulisic jerseys in the US, right? Ignore the rest for a second. Leeds in total sold 300,000 jerseys last season.
Yeah.
That's double plus. You're talking, so revenue for the club, that's huge. $35 million for just the 350. That's paid for. I mean, he was 58 million. He won't be worth 58 million now because he hasn't played consistently enough to justify an increase on that fee. You're probably talking 45, 50. If Leeds have got 25, 30 million burning a hole in their pocket from CDK that they never spent, and they can pull in that kind of shirt money, so you do it, don't you? Yeah.
It starts to make sense.
And Marsh has already said he wants to work with the player, and that was another thing. About reading between the lines, the gaps that aren't there.
He started to hold himself a little bit back because I think he was like, I could either hint that we're going for this player and also hint that my next dream is to be the coach of the U.S. men's national team, which there
was a large pause between those two. There was a large pause.
Yeah. Whether it be for the men's national team in the distant future.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or he didn't want to finish the other sentence, or it leads. So
I really look forward to working with him. Yeah. In a few years' time in the men's national team, there was a gap, and you were like, oh, hang on. Do you know? Of course, you know something we don't know. Do you want
to? Yeah.
Well, and as you said, well, we'll see. I mean, I am willing to say that I'm satisfied with this transfer window. Right now, pencils down. I'm willing to say we had a depth. We sold two pieces that we probably weren't going to sustain. In the case of Phillips, he probably wasn't going to work in this system. In the case of Rafinha, he wanted to go to Barcelona. Mazel, as long as the check clears from the Catalonian giants, as they say, that's fair. So, but man,
there is one other factor.
Yeah.
Well, if the 49ers were ever going to do anything at Leeds, now is the time. Because from what I've seen from the 49ers, they've not done an awful lot. Like the big thing with them was going to be the revamping of the stadium, which has barely been touched since they've taken their stake. They've increased their stake, and nothing's really gone into the club. We can't say that we've spent money that we haven't earned ourselves. There's no additional revenue being spent from 49ers money, because we've just spent the transfer money that we brought in this year. So, I think we're net 1 million spent. So that's not 49ers money. If the 49ers, being an American franchise, are serious about a worldwide sport being big in America and then being big owners of that, why would you not sign the darling of American soccer?
I mean, I've seen rumors around about, that they've offered to put money in for transfers, even in January, whatever. And Roger Zani has said no, because that always comes with more shares. And he's not ready to let go of his majority ownership stake yet. So there may be some issues there in the boardroom. It may not be that the 49ers are unwilling to do it. It may just be that Roger Zani is not quite ready to let go yet. Yeah. But I agree with you. I mean, that makes sense from their perspective as well, is to really try to push on that one. I see here as well, there's a comment saying, if he's American, we're going to start looking like the USA national team. I think we'd still have more Spanish players, so I'm not really worried about that.
I think we do.
Yeah, the only thing is the coach. The only thing is the coach.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, like Jir said, it's the United States is a top football power, becoming a football power, and so why wouldn't you want to have players from that team? Sure. Let's just quickly, I don't want to really go past 6:30 here on the East Coast, and I believe it's approaching 11:30 your time in Ireland. Let's just preview Brighton a little bit and maybe Everton. Graham Potter, everybody rates. We always have trouble down in Brighton. I believe the first fixture was a draw. And we obviously didn't have a fully implemented system back then. So what do you think is going to happen at Brighton? Let's go with Michael first.
Well, I wouldn't have thought so previously, thinking that we were coming up against Chelsea, but this match may be the toughest one yet, coming up against Brighton. Graham Potter is a very smart manager, and not one who makes excuses in the same way that Tommy Tactics does. So, he's very bright, and I think he will have some sense of how to play around our press, possibly by going long or over it. And you've got to know too. I mean, some of the players that they have tend to do quite well against us. Thinking about Welbeck, for example. So this is a difficult one. Can we still get a result playing the way that we are, especially, with the confidence that we have right now, and we're just starting every match with our tails up. So I think there's every chance again that we could get something from this. It will be a very difficult match though. And I do think tactically, it won't come quite, I can imagine saying this. I couldn't even imagine. It won't come quite as easy for us as it did against Chelsea. The words just come out of my mouth.
I like that. Yeah. It's wild. Yeah, that's a interesting sentence.
Tommy's still on the megabus.
That's excellent.
Jir, what are your thoughts on Brighton?
Well, I clearly know nothing about football because I've been wrong in our last two sets of predictions already. I thought we beat Southampton and we didn't. I thought we'd get beaten by Chelsea and we didn't. I have this one in my head down as a 1-1 draw. I think I said at the start of the season, I thought we'd get a draw against them and beat Everton. I don't like saying this because I always felt Graham Potter was disrespectful towards Bielsa on a consistent basis. I don't like to admit he's a good manager, but unfortunately the stats and figures say that he is. And he's done a good job with a relative, what we've classified in football in terms of a small club. I mean, I remember Brighton nearly going out of existence at one point from the bottom division. How old I am. But I think it's a tricky one for us. We don't have a great record down there. I think we're in a better position now than we are. And I think, again, the same as Chelsea, the first 10, 15 minutes are going to be vitally important that we don't concede early. And we've looked a little fragile in the first 10 minutes of games. And if we can get past that 10-minute period, I think we could be okay. But yeah, I think they're a good side and they'll cause us problems as well. I think Welbeck has seemed to have it always seems to be against Llorente that Welbeck tends to have the tangle with and gets the better of him. But I would like to think we're in a better position, and I would like to think that he doesn't know what we're going to do as easy as he did when having played Bielsa consistently enough. So I think it'll be tricky with both teams. I agree with Michael. I think it's going to be direct balls over the fullbacks are going to be the areas that are going to cause us concern. The difference that I have with this game in Chelsea is I don't think Chelsea would have considered what we had. I think Chelsea set up their style to play their way, and we're just going to steamroller us, and it didn't happen. I think Brighton will have looked at us, especially the start we've had, and will have identified areas to target in the game. Yeah, he did every single time. Yeah. But he targets wherever that weakness is, wherever that one weakness is, that's where he goes after. Yeah. And I think it's going to be the balls over the fullbacks. To balance things out from the last couple of weeks, I thought Christensen had a very good game on Saturday, and I thought Stroke's been consistently good on the left. But I still worry about our one of our two centre halves, and when the ball's wide, we tend to get dragged out of position, and we tend to leave that goal area pretty vacant. So, yeah, there would be if we can nullify that, I think we'll be okay. I think a point away to Brighton's a good point.
Yeah,
he's not going to be afraid to split his center backs up and push one of them forward, right? So if they end up doing switch balls or whatever, and we have some of our central midfielders moving over to help cover, it's going to open up space in the middle for their center backs to come through, and we've seen them do that before. So I would expect to see maybe that again.
Yeah, I'd take a point as well. I think not conceding early is going to be important because I think Brighton can sit back, can see a game out. I think if it's 0-0 and the game progresses, I think Brighton might start to get impatient towards the end of the game, but maybe not. They're a very patient squad, and it's going to be. I just think it's going to be a good game, and hopefully we score. Score early, score often. We'll see. I don't see this being maybe as big of a rout. Maybe it'll probably be a little bit of a 1-1, 1-0, 2-1. I don't see this either side scoring more than 3, but who knows? I mean, clip this up and be like, look at this idiot.
In saying that, though, it's hard to know what Brighton have based on who they've played so far this year. I mean, they've beaten United, but United have been poor.
Let me go ahead and share this.
I think they drew at Newcastle, didn't they? But again, I don't know what Newcastle are yet this season either. They're still pretty much an unknown kind of entity until we get a good look at what they've got. Yeah, beat West Ham, but West Ham are in the bottom of the division. You've got a draw against Newcastle, and you've got them beating Manchester United. So there's not. And again, United beating Liverpool the other night. It's as poor a Liverpool team as I've seen in a long, long time. They really look tired and leggy. So it's hard to look at that and go, we can predict what Brighton are going to do because we don't really know what the opposition, like Newcastle looks like the toughest game they've had. And are Newcastle going to be that good? I don't know. It's a tricky one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is. It's a tricky one. I like that we rested most everybody tonight, and everybody should be fit and firing, as they say, ready to go. What are your general thoughts on the table in general? So this weekend will be a battle of top 6 giants, Brighton and Leeds. But what are your general thoughts on the table so far? We're 3 matches in. West Ham doesn't seem to be in serious trouble, as do Leicester and Wolves. Obviously, I don't foresee all of these teams to be in the relegation zone
I think Leicester are in big trouble.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so do I. Their transfer business is woeful. They're losing players, not picking them up. It seems like they're out of ideas there. And I like Rodgers, but I think there's a rot, it seems, at the club right now, or something is stinking there, and it's not looking good for them.
Well, they're doing Leeds this year, aren't they? They've said that they're not buying players this year, and they've lost experienced goalkeeper.
Yeah,
you know, they're going to lose possibly Fofana.
Yeah.
They could possibly also lose Tielemans as well. He's not playing Tielemans because of the Arsenal links.
Yeah.
So like there could be a mass exit out of Leicester now. If you look at if you're Tielemans, you're going to want to come play for Arsenal, aren't you? So it's
Sorry to go back, but Star Wars Book Club just posted again. Reported
looking at the table.
Pulisic jerseys sold since he going to Chelsea are 682,115.
If you're gonna come on here with the wrong stats in the first place, I mean, what are we doing here, people?
That's it.
That's staggering. Right. That's 68 million.
Staggering. But back to the table. If you can just move up back to where we are again, because it's a bit stifling down there near the bottom. Back where the air is fresh.
Yes.
Back where the air is fresh. Thank you. Yeah. So it's all aboard HMS Piss the League, isn't it? I don't expect it to stay like that, but I did. I do want to say I did predict potentially that we could break top 10 this season, and I think we could still.
You did say that. You did say that.
Although I predicated that on bringing in some new signings. To be fair, I did not predict Rodrigo to do as well as he's been doing. So that was, I'll caveat with that. I did suggest that new signings would be needed for us to achieve that, and it seems that so far we're doing quite well with the squad that we have. Injuries are always going to be an issue. Like, just to go back to that conversation, of course, injuries will always be an issue over time. I still do want to see some incomings, but yeah, I think it's still possible. And the way that we're playing, that we look like a top 10 side.
I want to go. Can't see. Oh, there we are. I wanted to go to some of these other clubs. Somebody asked Liverpool. They do look old and slow. And there was a stat I saw on Twitter that Jurgen Klopp's 7th year.
Yes,
it just goes flat. I think he got relegated once on a 7th year.
He Dortmund.
Yeah, he finished out of Europe in the Bundesliga in his 7th year. So they look flat. And Man United were they said blood in the water. They had everything to play for. It was a 2-1 game. Are Liverpool in danger of finishing out of the top 6? And I guess is the duopoly, who's going to challenge City? Do we believe?
I genuinely think Arsenal are going to have a cracking season. I think they did really good business in the summer, and if they're not finished yet, if they can bring in a player like Tielemans, I think their midfield, because I think Odegaard has looked like a different player since he signed for Arsenal. He looks proper grown up and mature in there. He's been excellent for them, and Gabriel Jesus was just a clever signing for the money they paid for him. So
Odegaard's another one where the armband has made a big difference. Yeah,
but he looks like an established central top 10 or top 6 central midfielder. Like, he looks like he commands and runs games, and he's been excellent. For me, the thing with Liverpool is I don't think the young players Liverpool had are as good as they think they are. And I don't mean that in any disrespect to Liverpool players. What I mean by that is Harvey Elliott's a decent player, but I think if you sell him, I don't think a top 3 team buys him. I think probably a mid-table side look at buying him, probably pay over the odds from, but they probably look at that's where they're going. And I used to play this game when Manchester United were really bad after Ferguson left. It was like, if you were to sell their players, where did they go? And that'll tell you how strong you think your team actually is when you said, look at where they would leave and go to. And I think Liverpool look leggy, they look tired, but they've looked tired since the Fulham game, the first game of the season. They looked really slow and sluggish. They still do. Some managers' stuff has a shelf life. Bielsa always said it was 4 years. His partner had a 4-year shelf life, and then you have to either replace the manager or replace the playing squad. And I think Klopp is at a point where Liverpool aren't spending the kind of money they probably need to spend consistently to replenish that squad and refresh it. And I think it puts them in a really difficult position this year where they've kind of had to dip into the youths an awful lot more. I am not getting upset for Liverpool complaining about injuries. Don't talk to Leeds fans about injuries. We've had, I think I saw a meme today of Mel Gibson sitting beside the guy that played Jesus in the Passion of the Christ, and he's sitting there covered in blood, and he was like a Liverpool fan telling a Leeds fan about their injury problems. And it's like, They need to buy players, and I don't think they're going to. They need to buy probably still 2 or 3. They definitely need central midfielders, and they probably need to do it in the next week. I don't think they will.
Yeah, and karma is, you know what? I mean, he was. I did not mind Liverpool until he basically bent the referees at the home game last year. It's got Pascal sent off for a red card. His behavior was absolutely asinine. And
he should have been sent off himself.
He should have been sent off. Yes, correct.
He came onto the pitch. You're not allowed to pitch.
Injury,
absolutely.
Because we were so injury prone that entire season, that red card was so terrible for us. We had a setback, Pascal Stroik, who had to miss 3 games. It was devastating for our season. Actually, probably, I mean, it threw us down. But at the same time, it's like, in that type of environment, he's got to win every single game, and they're so ruthless. But I just thought it was terrible behavior, unsportsmanlike, and I now have zero sympathy for Liverpool. And quite honestly, outside of scum, would love to see Liverpool win. I mean, it would probably be that in that order: scum, Liverpool, and Chelsea. That I would just love to beat. We knocked one off.
Yeah.
Any closing thoughts, gents, before we sign off?
No, I mean, I think we've just about covered it for me. I'm looking forward to the weekend to see how we do with Brighton, because it's always been a tricky one for us. So I think this will be yet another really good measure for how we're progressing under Marsh and with the way that we're doing it this year. And then, of course, it's a big week in the transfer market. So, fingers crossed that we get, for me, someone else in the door, preferably in a forward role, and hopefully maybe someone at a left back role as well, even if it's a backup or someone young. Our youth team still doesn't have a left back. Like the U21, there's no left back. So we got to get someone in there. Come on.
They've got McCarran and Hjelde who kind of play there.
Yeah, but they're not. McCarran more so, but Hjelde's he's a left back, but it's sort of a Strout situation, right?
Into the senior team. He's not not on that path yet.
Yeah.
Sign Paxton Aronson. Star Wars Book Club is
there. We go.
Sign Paxton Aronson. Absolutely. Why not get him now? He looks like he's a talent. But if you believe the transfer market, we're going to sign this week, in the next 8 days, Bamford Diaz, Kai Wagner, Trevor Chalobah, Shea Adams, Martin Terrier, Christian Pulisic, and then everybody else, as I mentioned, Willie Gnonto is going to be in there as well. So that's who we're going to sign the next 8 days. One of them might be true, and it'll take us 8 days to find out. I think if we do bring in one more player, I think we've had a very good window. And we've said before, I'd rather it was a left back than a striker right now. I think we've had a decent summer. We have a very, very good start to the season. Remember, from the next 2 games, a point gives us that 98% chance of survival in the first month. That's 1 point. And I think I had said, lose to Chelsea, draw Brighton, beat Everton. That gets us to 8 points from the first 2 games. And then you're looking at 1 point from the next 2, and you're already there. So,
well, boys,
great.
A week from today is the deadline. Do you guys want to go live on that Wednesday?
What? It's Wednesday. I should be able to go live on that Wednesday. Yeah, no problem.
Okay, we'll circle back up, and we'll probably see you. We won't talk. The Everton game, that's 3 points in the bag.
Come here. Could you imagine that's the one we lose? Could you?
Yeah.
Can you just imagine that's the one we lose? That'll be karma.
Yeah.
Yes, and you know what? Well, come on, it's at home. We can't lose that game. It's against.
This is the danger, Alex. When you start saying we can't lose that game,
we can't do it.
I was texting my friend who's a Leeds fan with 15 minutes to go on Sunday with us 3-0 up, and my exact text to him was, "We can't lose this one now, can we?" Like, you're 3-0 up with 15 minutes ago, and I'm still thinking, I'm still not sure we won this yet.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Don't lead this up. Yeah. No, that's right.
We will be. Go ahead, Michael.
4 points from the next 2 would just be astounding. I would even be happy with 2 points from the next 2, frankly. So, yeah.
Yes. 1 more point puts us, as Jer said, in the 98th percentile, where we can just breathe a little bit this season, which is so important. Let's circle up back next Wednesday. You were listening to the American Leeds podcast with the awesome folks, Michael and Jeer. Michael, aka Leeds Faithful on Twitter. Jeer, Leeds United The View. I'm saying Jeer, the man, the myth, the legend. Jeer. I said no. No? All right.
No.
Well, check out Leeds United The View every morning. He uploads some great LUFC content. And thank you, boys. I appreciate it. And marching on together, Leeds. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.